All right, today we're going to talk about modeling multiplication of integers. When you're modeling integers, at least the multiplication of integers, one thing that might help is if you think about the first integer or look at the first integer. If the first integer happens to be a negative, instead of reading it as a negative sign, if you read it opposite of, it might be helpful. For example, negative 1 times 4. Well, instead of reading it as negative 1, if we read it opposite of 1 set of positive 4, then hopefully we should know that the opposite of one set of positive 4 is one set of negative 4. So that might be helpful when modeling. There's two ways to model multiplication of integers. You can use counters, which is something that we should be familiar with, or you may use the number line, which we'll get into in a minute. But first, I want to show you how to use counters. In this problem, we have negative 2 times positive 3. Remember the tip. Instead of reading it as negative 2, if we read this problem, opposite of 2 sets of positive 3. So if you think about it, what is the opposite of 2 sets of positive 3? Well, obviously that would be 2 sets of negative 3. So there's one set of negative 3. And here's the other. So what we're left with is a negative 6. Now, same problem, but this time we're going to model it on a number line. That does not mean that you change the way you read the problem. You will still read it as opposite of 2 sets of positive 3. Just like before when you were showing addition or subtraction, you start from the middle. And think about what the blue statement is saying. What is the opposite of 2 sets of positive 3? Well, that would be 2 sets of negative 3. So from the 0, I'm going to go back 3 places. 1, 2, 3. There's my first set and my second set. 1, 2, 3. And I end up here at negative 6. Now, what if the first integer is not a negative? What if it's a positive? Well, you still use the same idea when reading the problem. This problem says 2 times negative 3, but I would encourage you to read it as 2 sets of negative 3. So this time they're asking us straight out, what would 2 sets of negative 3 look like? In that case, you would just put the first set of negative 3, followed by the second set of negative 3. And again, you see that 2 sets of negative 3 gives us 6 negatives, or negative 6. Again, if you were to show the same problem on the number line, you would start from 0. And this time we're going to show 2 sets of negative 3. Again, we're going to move back 1, 2, 3 places. There's my first set and second. 1, 2, 3 set causes me to end up at negative 6. Now, what if both integers are negative? Well, good thing you still will read the problem the same way. Instead of reading it as negative 2 times negative 3, I would encourage you to read it as opposite of 2 sets of negative 3. So we want to show the opposite of 2 sets of negative 3. Well, how can we show the opposite of negative 3? Well, that would be with a positive 3. And in this particular model, they want 2 sets of the opposite of negative 3. So there's my first set, followed by my second set. And as you can see, 2 sets, or the opposite of 2 sets of negative 3, gives me positive 6. All right? Last example, same problem, but what if you're on a number line and you have two negatives? Still going to read it the same, the opposite of two sets of -3. So just like before, what is the opposite of one set of -3? Well, that would be one set of +3. But they don't want one set. We must show two sets, the opposite of two sets of -3. So we need 1, 2, 3. So now we have two sets, and they are the opposite of -3. And where we end up is a +6.